I want to share some thoughts with you about, the whole faith aspect and just how a lot of people who are financially focused, who are focused living by the standards of this world, how they can be so easily critical about, you know, particularly my faith walk. And, this is the stuff that I had witnessed ever since it began back in 2008. And, I'm not justifying my position as if I need to, as if, I'm so easily moved that inside that I'm secretly, not wanting to work and, trying to make people think that. I don't have to justify my position, but I just want to state exactly that. That if you decide to walk in faith, that you're going to have people that are going to come against you and they're going to judge you, and I should say, misjudge you, because they want to, think the worst. They don't want to come to you, and find out what's going on as if it's any of their business. But they don't want to come to you to find out, what you're doing, what's going on. I haven't seen anyone do that except for one man, and he went to my church. And sadly, he passed away a few years ago. But he was the only one that came to me to find out, what I was doing. So I told him exactly what God told me. And so I guess that was okay with him, whether I care or not, whether it was okay. But, just there are a lot of critical people that I have witnessed that, have come, against my faith walk, thinking that it was lazy, thinking that I didn't, want to work and stuff like that. And, you know, a lot of people could think that it's nothing, that it could be done easily. Well, until you get into that place yourself, you're not going to know what it's like, because your entire life you have taken that responsibility of, working a job, and from that paying bills, and even deeper in that, following successful people. I mean, read Forbes magazine, or, you get onto the stocks, trying to make money in that way. And just doing what financial advisors say that you got to do to become successful. And so they use, the poor and the homeless as what not to be's. They don't want to end up there, so they're going to do what they can not to. So your entire life you have been molded into trying to be financially successful, into trying to be quote unquote responsible, and to have a good name by a lot of people. A lot of people want to be like, I want people to think good of me. I want them to see me as a hard worker, responsible, and stuff like that. And so this entire life, you have been, following the ways of Adam, plunging your hand in the ground to trying to make out a living, you know? So this entire time, your focus has been on what you have to do in this world, and working and saving, doing everything that you're supposed to do. And so the entire responsibility has been on you. You've learned not to depend on anybody else. You've learned to depend on yourself. And so you only learn to trust yourself. You've learned not to trust in anybody else, because in this world, you can't trust anybody. Maybe the people have been, fallible. They promised that they would help you out, but they didn't. So you've learned not to trust. Whatever the deal is, you've learned to trust in yourself. And so when you come to know Christ, and if God leads you to that place to where, hey, I want you to quit working and I want you to depend on me. I don't know how many people actually have done it, but, there's a lot of, Christian, teachers out there that have walked in faith for healing. God used them mightily, like, John G. Lake, or, let me think of that other dude's name, Smith Wigglesworth. And so, I don't know. I haven't really read in depth about where they stood financial wise, you know, walking in faith for God's provision. I don't know if they have ever done that. I think John G. Lake more or less was learning that as well, where, he had to take a trip somewhere and he didn't have the money to do it, and God provided. So, in that aspect, God throws that stuff at you if you're open into hearing it. So, there, like I said, you've been molded in this world to depend on yourself. You've been told that you have to depend on yourself. There's not going to be anybody that's going to help you. And, it reminds me of that scene in Ray, the movie about Ray Charles. And when he was a boy, his mom told him that I'll help you once, but next time you're on your own, because that's the way it is in this world. And, her position telling him that, it's right. That's the way the world treats you, because the world has a lack of mercy toward, not only anyone in need, but anyone that is not following in the ways of the financially successful. So, getting back to the original point is that you've been molded probably by your parents or those that are older than you to try to be financially successful in this world. Maybe your friends are trying to push you to do it, extended family. Maybe you're dating somebody and their parents are trying to mold you to be financially successful for, the girl that you like, or whatever it might be. So that is the focus of everyone, that is in this world. But like I said, when you come to know Christ and you wish to go deeper with him, it takes surrendering your will. And I'm not talking about surrendering your life to Jesus. Oh, Lord, I ask you and forgive me for my sins, and then save me, and, I'm going to continue focusing on this world and doing what I want to do and not bother, finding out what you want me to do. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where you're going to be like, okay, Lord, I'm giving my life to you. I'm surrendering my will, what I want to do, in this world. What I want to do is, get married and have kids and have a successful job and make lots of money. That's what I want to do in this world. So if you want to follow Christ, then you have to take up your cross and follow him. What he wants you to do in this world. It's not an easy thing to do. And a lot of people will be like, oh, that's nothing. Oh, really? Have you ever been into that place to where you really surrendered your will? Where you're wanting to follow what God wants you to do? And in that, if God says, I want you to trust me, you got to deal with the pressure from people. You got to deal with the criticism from people. And I know what it's like being in that place where you're asking God for his provision, and it's not coming in the time that you want it. So you're dealing with the pressure of the deadline of that bill or whatever it is, whether it's a deadline of a mortgage or your rent or whatever it may be. You're dealing with God's timing on that. And sometimes God comes in at the last minute, or he has a reason for whatever he's doing. So, you're dealing with the pressure. And not only that, but people coming against you saying, how come you're not working? You shouldn't be lazy. If a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat. And if a man doesn't provide for his family, he's worse than an unbeliever. So you're going to hear all this stuff from people about what you got to do. And so, walking in faith is not an easy thing to do. And, but in faith, you're learning that God comes through. You're learning that you can trust Him. And if anything, it's helping you to dig into the Bible and gather all the scriptures together that will encourage you, that will strengthen you, because, I clung tightly to, Abraham's faith, Elijah's faith, Elisha's faith, or I should say Elisha, Jesus. I clung deeply onto those examples because that proves God's character and who He is. Who He is Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. So I never understood why, I was following Jesus. I was doing what He wanted me to do. I don't understand why I had so many Christians coming against me. Well, that's because there was a conflict between Christianity and humanism, I should say. You know, but, so basically the whole point of this video is to show people that, walking in faith is not easy. It's not something that anybody can do. How are you going to deal with a deadline and you have that pressure on you? That pressure can force you to cave into doing what, this world wants you to do. And, you got to resist that. You got to resist, the people of this world trying to force you to, conform to the way this world does things. So, I've had so many people, and I still do, have people coming against me. This lady at church it's a hi-bye kind of thing. She doesn't talk with me, but I heard that she was critical of my faith walk, telling a brother that I need to get a job. Why she can't come to me in person, I don't know, but she sees me and she's like, hi, and then walks by. Her husband talks to me, and I'm sure he knows about my situation. So, when I first started my faith walk, I was scared because I didn't know how to answer, people when they were questioning about it. I would keep to myself and stuff like that, just like that girl that was visiting my church. We went to McDonald's that one day, and we went with a close brother of mine, and he knew all about my faith walk, and I guess he thought that, I was making an excuse for not working. So she asked him, you probably heard this before, but she asked him what he did, and he said he worked with his father in construction and stuff like that, but he wouldn't always receive work. Now, somebody in the world can criticize him and say, well, you need to get a steady job and stuff like that. You can't wait for these jobs to come in. And, that's the position of this world. But she asked him what he did, and he told her. And then I was like, as soon as she asked him, I knew she was going to ask me. And already I could tell she was already critical. She was opinionated, and I knew that I was going to be a source of criticism and soon ridicule. So she asked me what I did work-wise. I said, well, I'm walking in faith. I'm in a rest right now. She asked what that meant, so I told her. And I could tell by the look that she was giving that she was, criticizing me. And then she says, I'm not trying to judge you. I'm just trying to understand. Well, later on, she says, working is a virtue. So that tells me, from what she had said, is that I wasn't virtuous. That I didn't want to work. She apparently thought I was using that as an excuse. And so she looked over at her brother, and he had his head turned laughing. So I guess she saw him, and she was like, yeah, he's full of crap. He's making an excuse. And that's when she said, working is a virtue. So, after that, I was like, I kept to myself. I didn't talk to her anymore. And surprisingly, like a month later, when she was in town, she was, texting all her friends, hey, come meet me here, let's talk. And so she texted me. I'm like, why are you texting me? Because it looked like her and my friend were hitting it off, But I ended up meeting with her, and I guess she wanted to find out if I was still being disobedient according to the ways of this world and still being not virtuous. And so I met with her, and her questions were the same as what they were last time. And I just gave her the same response. And so she says, well, I'm going to meet with my friends right now, so bye. That was more or less her reaction. So from that time forward, I never talked to her. I really don't want to talk to her because what can you say to somebody like that that's critical? You can't talk to anybody like that. Until they're in that place themselves where they're learning to depend on God and wanting to do what He wants, they're not going to understand where I'm coming from. And it says that in, I believe it's 1 Corinthians, maybe 1:20, that the man without the Spirit does not understand the things that come from the Spirit of God, because they are foolishness to them, and they cannot accept them because they are spiritually discerned. So somebody from the way of this world, when you're talking to somebody about faith, they're not going to understand it because they have the laws of this world in their mind, and you're operating from the heavenly mindset, not from the earthly. When you're following what God wants you to do, you're following faith. So faith isn't in line with the heavenly laws. So you're not subject to the world's laws anymore. You're subject to God's laws. You're wanting to do what God wants you to do. So, that's what I really wanted to share with you. I wanted to correct anybody's notion, anybody that may dislike my videos or gives a thumbs down. I saw that in a couple of videos that I posted here on BitChute, and I haven't really seen any on YouTube, but I definitely have more views on BitChute than I do on YouTube. And so, a lot of people may not like my position in not working. Maybe they think I'm being lazy, using it as an excuse. Maybe they have the laws of this world in mind, in which they want to trash me. And it's probably good that I took the commenting section off, because I don't need to hear people trying to, instill the laws of this world, trying to tell me that I'm breaking the laws of this world. I know what God told me to do, and I'm confident in that fact. So I don't need trolls telling me, otherwise, because until they're in that place themselves, when they're learning to trust God and wanting to do what He wants, then, they'll understand where I'm coming from. But, I just wanted to share that with people. And, if you're walking in faith, if you've been watching my videos and God has led you yourself into doing such, then, you're going to get to that place where you really don't care about what people think. You're going to want to do what God wants you to do. And so you're going to understand about the pressure. You're going to understand about the criticism from people. So, I just wanted to share that with you. Thanks for taking the time to watch.